Okay, hi. So I did my project over the effects that intermittent fasting has on individuals who are trying to lose weight, trying to improve their overall body composition, and also some other health benefits that kind of been going into that as well. Um, the first slide is, see if I can get it to focus here. The first slide I want to do is what is intermittent fasting. So essentially, intermittent fasting is just a diet regimen where an individual would typically fast during a period of time, and then they would eat during a period of time. So just kind of cycling between the two. And just kind of an interesting fact: intermittent fasting is actually derived from traditional starvation. So there's a lot of different methods to intermittent fasting, which include alternate day fasting, whole day fasting, and time restriction feeding. So, the most popular is the time restriction feeding just because people don't want to go a whole day, with the alternative day. They don't want to go a whole day with eating, such a little portion and then eating whatever they want. They don't want to switch between the two. I think for a lot of people it's really complicated. So I think a lot of people choose the normal. You hear most popular is 16 hours fast, 8 hours of eating. They also have 20 hours of fast and 4 hours of eating. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. As long as your fasting period is actually over 12 hours, you're in the clear. So just kind of explaining the alternate day fasting. So essentially the alternate day fasting, an individual would switch between no food restriction days and to a meal a day that would have only 25% of their daily caloric intake. So they would kind of switch. So one day they wouldn't have any restrictions, and then the next day they would. The second one would be the whole day fasting, where 1 to 2 days out of the week they're actually practicing the fasting regimen. So they would be eating 400 to 500 calories, and then for 5 or 6 days out of the week they would be eating normally. So it would be no restrictions at all. Which this one's kind of an interesting one. I actually hadn't heard of this type of intermittent fasting before doing this project, so it's definitely something that I personally learned. So I thought that was a really interesting way to go about it. So you only have 2 days where you're like, maybe really hungry, you're eating 25% of your daily caloric intake, 400, 500 calories. Obviously that's not a lot, but you're fueling your body the other 5 to 6 days. So kind of interesting. And then, as I said, the most popular is the time restricted. So with this one, you would have a fasting period of at least 12 hours, and you would never go through a day where you would just not be eating enough calories, right? You wouldn't be going through a day where you're not getting the daily caloric intake that you're supposed to be taking in. So you would be having your normal calorie intake, whether it's 2,000 calories, 1,500, or whatever, 2,200, whatever calorie amount that you're trying to consume. You would still be consuming that amount, but what you would be doing is you'll be having a 16-hour fast or however long hour fast, and then you would, in that time period of the eating period, for an example, if you were doing the 16-hour and eating for 8, you would have to consume all of those calories in that 8-hour window. I noticed that a lot of the studies that I looked at, they kind of acknowledged that a lot of the times people are not gonna consume the amount of calories they're supposed to consume in this method, just because it's really hard if you're only eating, say if you're doing the 20-hour fast and 4 hours of eating, a 4-hour eating window. I mean, eating 2,000 calories in 4 hours when eating healthy is difficult. I mean, if you're eating McDonald's or something, it goes by quite quickly. But if you're eating, trying to eat healthy, then that kind of makes it really hard to kind of consume all of that food in such a short amount of time. So scientists have definitely acknowledged this, and they've noticed that people aren't consuming enough. So pretty much what they recommended is to make sure that you're tracking your calories if you are doing this, or getting assistance from like a doctor or recommendations from a doctor to make sure that like you're consuming enough and that you're not going under that caloric intake like every single day, because that eventually will not be very good for your body and you'll just become underweight quite fast. So the first study I kind of looked at, it was done by Grant M. Tinsley, and essentially what he did is he studied the 20-hour fast and 4-hour eating window. So he did the time restriction beating method of intermittent fasting. And so what I thought was really interesting about this study is he looked at individuals who were obese, and he also looked at individuals who were fairly healthy and just trying to improve their overall body composition. I thought this was really awesome because, you know, their audience, or who like for me, like I'm interested in this information and I love it, but I'm not obese. I'm not considered obese. So if they only did this study on individuals who are obese, you know, that has me thinking, well, how effective is it on individuals who are not obese? So I think it was really awesome that they had a variety of different participants in the study. And so pretty much what they did is they did about 12 weeks of them just fasting. As I said, they did the time restriction, and essentially what they looked at is they saw that the results were actually really mixed. So some of the individuals had higher LDL and higher cholesterol, and then some of the individuals had a higher HDL and a lower count of triglycerides. So essentially the reason why they think they had such a wacky turnout, they think it's because they didn't calculate the amount of energy that was used throughout the day. So they didn't calculate if they worked out or didn't work out. And then they also didn't calculate what they ate in that feeding period. So essentially what they said is like, well, during the 4-hour eating period, if you're eating, you know, McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and all that stuff during that 4-hour eating period, then it might not be as effective as if you were to be eating healthy foods such as like fruits and vegetables and, you know, lean proteins, just examples of the different foods. And so, yeah, they think that's why they could have seen such a big variety in the results. Okay, and then next study I did, this study actually is done by Dr. Panda and Dr. Longo, and they claimed that, and this is in quote, fasting enables organisms to enter alternative metabolic phases which rely less on glucose and more on ketone body-like carbon sources. So essentially ketones are what is like released whenever your body is in starvation mode, and so essentially it helps you. What these scientists are saying is that practicing intermittent fasting, your brain will want to run off of those ketone bodies instead of running off of glucose, which is glucose is like sugar and through carb sources. And they brought up a very interesting point, or an interesting find that they found, is that intermittent fasting could actually help prevent different diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and Huntington's disease, which I think this is such a huge discovery that they found. Unfortunately, they did only find this in rodents, but they are working on taking that to the next step. So they think that since, you know, the results were very in our favor, pretty much what they're gonna do is they're gonna do this on organisms such as monkeys or pigs or different things that are very similar to the human body, and they're gonna kind of test that out. Like, can it help prevent these different diseases, and also can it increase our lifespan? I think that's, I don't think I know. That's a big up and coming thing. Can intermittent fasting increase someone's lifespan? Can it make them live longer because they are healthier? It is said that how healthy you eat kind of dictates how long you're gonna live, but you know, it's really hard for them to do this study because it would just take decades and decades and decades and decades for them to really do and have like a very effective and very strong like scientific research to support that claim. But they are thinking that that's the way the science is going. So next one, in conclusion, intermittent fasting can really help individuals with their overall body composition. I know it's a very, very popular diet that's going on right now, and there's a lot of different bodybuilders, people who are just trying to lose weight in general, you know, different people who are very focused on their physique. I'm personally a personal trainer, so I always suggest this diet type to people who kind of like really are struggling with losing weight. I'm like, okay, well, try this one out, see how this works for you. If you like it, that's awesome. If you don't like it, totally okay. So I think that this is a really, really awesome diet regimen that is backed up by significant research. And I also think that it was really interesting that they found that it could actually help prevent diseases, or assist in helping the disease or slowing it down. I think this is such a huge find. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and Huntington's disease, those are all like diseases that don't have no vaccine for. They can't just cure them out of, you know, just cause. They haven't found that yet. So any new research or any new science that comes out and says this can improve that disease or it could help prevent that disease, I think it's definitely worth looking more into it, you know? And then, as stated before, just the last little point is a couple of these studies were just on rodents. So the whole intermittent fasting can help with those diseases. Those are all done on the rodents. So as I said, like that really needs to be taken to the next step. So we can't just make that claim like, oh, it can cure Alzheimer's, because that hasn't really been scientifically proven yet. But I do think it's on the way to that being proven. And that's it. Thank you.